This is NBC News special coverage of the first presidential debate between former President Trump.
Look, we've had a terrible economy.
And Vice President Kamala Harris.
What we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess.
The two candidates meeting in person for the first time ever.
So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say we don't have to go back.
I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country.
A historic face-off.
What she says is an absolute lie.
You're going to hear from the same old tired playbook.
The former president battling to win back the White House.
I had no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country.
The vice president running to be the nation's first female president.
It's insulting to the women of America.
Each arguing the other is unfit to lead the country.
Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window.
It is the biggest event yet of the 2024 election.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people.
And it could determine who wins the White House in November.
People want to take their country back.
I think the choice is clear in this election.
Reporting tonight from the spin room at the presidential debate in Philadelphia, Tom Llamas. And from NBC News Studios in New York, Hallie Jackson.
Hey, good evening. I'm Tom Llamas. Hallie will be joining us in just a moment as you're watching NBC News Now's live coverage of what could be the most consequential night of the 2024 presidential election. You see right there the historic handshake between Vice President Kamala Harris, here it is, and former President Trump. This is actually the first time the two of them ever met, not just on a debate stage, but in person, period. And tempers ran hot tonight with personal attacks just minutes into the hour-and-a-half-long debate. Both sides trying to play to their strengths, like Vice President Harris hammering Mr. Trump on reproductive rights, his defense of Supreme Court justices who overturned Roe v. Wade, and what she called lies about abortion.
Nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America.
The former president preferring to talk more about immigration, pushing debunked claims about Haitian migrants in Ohio, and accusing the vice president of allowing undocumented immigrants into the country.
And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
Fact-checking also becoming a big part of the night, with the moderators stepping in to correct the record repeatedly, including one instance when the former president refused to back down from the false claim that he won the 2020 election.
In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all. I said that sarcastically. You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof.
Let's get right to my NBC News colleagues, Peter Alexander and Garrett Haake, out there in the spin room. Peter covers the Harris campaign, Garrett, the Trump campaign. And Garrett, I want to start with you. Tell me what you're hearing from inside the Trump campaign.
Inside the Trump campaign, they're very confident in how he performed tonight. They think this foreign policy segment was the strongest part of his performance tonight. If you go one layer out, though, the Republicans who advised this campaign, who are rooting for this campaign, they are frustrated. I've been talking to Republican operatives, including some folks who are involved in the debate preparation for this president, who don't feel like he took advantage of the opportunities that were presented to him. Now, granted, some of them were frustrated about the moderators. They were frustrated about the topics. They're frustrated that Kamala Harris, for example, didn't get asked a direct question about inflation, an issue that they think is one of their strongest issues. But they realized that their guy didn't take advantage of what he was trying to do. All day I was talking to these Trump folks who told me they wanted to make Kamala Harris own the most liberal past positions that she's taken. And really only on the issue of fracking do they feel like they were successful. They just wasn't able to tie her to the things they felt like they needed to tie her to have a clear win tonight.
Are you getting the sense, because I'm getting the sense from the Republicans I'm talking to, it was a shift change when you compare it to the Atlanta debate? Coming out of the Atlanta debate, I mean, they were victorious, they were happy, they were congratulating each other. Here it's much different. There's frustration, there's anger, they're blaming moderators, and I think you're right, with that outside layer, they're frustrated a little bit with former president. Has the former president spoken out yet? Has he posted yet anything on Truth Social?
He's posted two things. One, suggesting that it was a strong debate performance because it was 3-on-1, so his own complaint about the moderators. I expect we'll hear more of that. And he posted a meme of him with AI-generated cats, a nod to that line where he was arguing with the moderator about immigrants eating pets, which I think, you know, just as my own view, feels like somebody who's much more online than millions of viewers here tonight who are probably going to have no idea what he's even referencing. Right. I think that is not the turf that a campaign that wants to be fighting for the middle of the country perhaps wants to be fighting on. We should mention Senator J.D. Vance, the running mate, is somewhere here in the spin room. He's gaggling with reporters. We'll bring you that sound as soon as we have it. I do want to ask you about that moment, though, when the moderators asked former President Trump about something J.D. Vance had said about vetoing a national abortion bill. Talk to me about that moment, because it seemed like the ticket wasn't on the same page. No, this is really striking. I mean, Donald Trump has had, over the course of his career, every conceivable position on abortion. Where he has landed now is that he believes it's an issue for the states, and he has used that to avoid taking direct questions about what, if any, federal policy he would take. He has not answered directly about whether he would veto a national abortion ban. But when J.D. Vance was on Meet the Press, I guess 2 weeks ago now, Kristen Welker asked him about this, and he kind of took Trump's position to what a lot of people thought was the logical conclusion. If he doesn't support a ban, yes, I suppose he would veto it. Trump wouldn't go that far tonight. And, Tom, that's the second time I can think of off the top of my head where Trump has distanced himself from a sort of Vance projection of a Trump position. Now on abortion, also on the child tax credit, where Vance has proposed a much more generous expansion of the child tax credit than Trump has. When you and your, ticket mate are not on the same page, that is a problem for a ticket. If J.D. Vance can't credibly speak for Donald Trump, what's he out there talking about? Right. Garrett Haake, stand by for us. I know when you have new reporting, we'll come back to you during this broadcast. I want to go to my friend Peter Alexander, who's out there in the middle of the spin room somewhere. Peter, give me a sense of what's happening inside the Harris-Walz campaign right now, what they're telling you.
Yeah, Tom, let's walk through a series of items that have been breaking and developing as you two have been speaking right now. We'll start in order. First, we've heard from the communications director from Kamala Harris, a man by the name of Brian Fallon, who immediately after this debate wrapped up, posted on social media, "That was fun. Let's do it again in October." Clearly a message being sent by the Harris campaign for the first time publicly that they would like there to be a second Harris-Trump debate. We're waiting for any response from the Trump campaign. We'll try to bring that to you as soon as we hear about it. Separately, we are hearing from a senior Harris campaign official who is describing this, in their words, as just a plethora of, how do they say it specifically? They said basically that they had more to work with than they could have possibly imagined, that they had so much that they were hoping to amplify over the course of this night, and most notably, they focus on the topic of abortion. Specifically, it's on that issue where, according to the Harris campaign's dial groups, they say they saw a dramatic gap, one of the biggest gaps they've ever seen, particularly from the voters, women in particular, who were focused on this, saying that they were satisfied, pleased, and supportive of the words they heard from Kamala Harris. It's a message you're going to hear going forward. And then most notably, and perhaps most importantly in terms of the potential influence it will have on those young voters and other voters, Taylor Swift, with 283 million followers on her Instagram account, within the last 5 minutes, has just publicly come out in favor of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, saying that she will be voting for them. She said she came to this conclusion after she saw that there was an AI, an artificial intelligence, false account that suggested she would be supporting Donald Trump. And she said the best way to be transparent about her views was to make it very clear publicly where she stood on this issue. She says, "I will be casting my vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the 2024 presidential election. I'm voting for Kamala Harris," she added, "because she fights for the rights and causes I believe need a warrior to champion them." Just to put that in some context here, remember only a matter of months ago when Joe Biden was the presidential nominee for the Democrats, there was a real concern among Democrats that they weren't getting the support within the young voter community, those first-time voters in many cases, that they weren't energized by a man who was already 81 and would be 86 at the end of a second term if he was to serve. Obviously, Kamala Harris tonight, as you heard, casting herself as a generational candidate. They feel strongly, and certainly with this endorsement from Taylor Swift tonight, that sends a very clear message, first from the debate and separately from her social media, about the value that young people may find in a Harris presidency going forward. And finally, I'll just tell you, based on the takeaways I've had speaking to analysts in this room and hearing from Democrats and Republicans alike, one of the things that frustrated Republicans, frankly, and satisfied a lot of Democrats, Tom, was the sense that Kamala Harris, though she didn't answer some questions, which is receiving some criticism, she did not say, which perhaps was stunning to critics, that America is better off now than it was 4 years ago. They do believe she succeeded in making this a referendum not so much about the Biden-Harris administration, but about Donald Trump himself. It's one place that we're hearing from a lot of Democrats so far tonight. Back to you.
I'm hearing that as well. Before you go, Peter, I do want to ask you, can you get a sense yet if there will be a second debate, if Democrats will even want that, or is it one and done?
Yeah, Tom, no, just to the first point I was making, Brian Fallon, of course, the communications director, as we just indicated, he came out publicly immediately after this. He said, that was fun. Let's do it again in October. He is the communications director for the Harris campaign. So it appears pretty clear that their message is, we're glad to do this again. We're waiting for any reaction from the Trump campaign. They had said in the past, he had said publicly, anytime, anywhere. That was focused on a Joe Biden debate. He has said publicly that he'd be glad to do other debates as well. He was pushing for a Fox News debate. But again, to be clear, at least to the best of my reporting right now, and I defer to colleagues if they've heard anything in the last 3 minutes, we have not yet heard from the Trump campaign in response to that.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.